Welcome to AI Strategy for CMOs. Hey everybody, welcome to AI Strategy for CMOs. I am your Action Jackson MC host for the show. I'm very excited about today's show. And just what is AI Strategy for CMOs? This is a weekly series that discusses the problems that face ad techies, marketing executives, and creative agencies around the world and how artificial intelligence can solve them. I'm basically the host for the show, kind of throw myself in, throw myself out whenever is needed. But I'm also the Executive Director of Innovation and Enablement for Qualex Consulting Services. But I'm not alone. Let me tell you something. I have some of the greatest hosts, and we have some of the greatest guests joining me today. And the first person I would like to bring to the stage is Vance Reavie, who's the CEO and founder of Junction AI. And what is Junction AI? Junction AI is an artificial intelligence platform designed to help marketers predict the images, video, and text for successful Google ads, social posts, and web promotions before launching. I like to kind of call Vance the algorithm man, and bringing to the stage is Vance Reavie. Welcome, Vance.
Hey, Gary, how you going today? Great to be back and looking forward to our special guest today, too, and our discussion. You know, the black box of AI, what's going on in there and how's this all happening? So I think this is a really good one for people who have a lot of questions about, you know, what they're going to do here, how they're going to do it, and how they know they're doing it right or, you know, achieving success. And it all starts at what's going on in there. So excited to talk about that and, you know, share a little bit about what we're doing at Junction AI to sort of demystify these things and make it more accessible so you know what's happening and you're on top of it.
And by the way, too, you definitely know there's no black box because you were working all night on a project with a model that is not a black box. So I'm glad you're able to join.
It's not a black box. It's not mysterious. It's just code and it's math. And there you go. You keep working on it. We had a big release last night. So I got to thank my dev team and my test team, and they did a great job.
Yeah. By the way, it's not because you look horrible. We're like, oh, you only got 2 hours of sleep. It's only because we just want to let people know that if they see you highly caffeinated, it's because you were up all night.
Jitters, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, welcome, Vance. I'm glad to have you in as one of the hosts. And then, you know, we have a second host is on the move. Like, this guy is on the move. Actually, when I throw the camera to him, I'm not even sure where he's going to be. If he's going to be in his car, he's going to be in his lobby. But our next host is Mike Tankel. He's the partner optimist at To Be Continued. Mike led brand strategy and fandom on The Twilight, and also including Skyfall, Olympus Has Fallen, Odd Life of Timothy Green, Lone Ranger, and Insidious. Not to mention, he was the brand strategist formerly of AT&T. I like to call Mike the agency man, but today he might be the action of Jackson of all of us. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, good to be here. I am in a comfortable hotel lobby. Got out of the car, made it in, and nobody knows the better.
Wow.
It's been a surprisingly normal, hectic week with meetings out of town, with investors, with brands, and you know what? It's never been more invigorating, but the AI already knew that, so I'm glad to be here.
You're just like there's no snow behind you. You're not in Texas, obviously.
Right.
No.
And it was also great to see you, Mike, because I felt like I was showing up in California as a VIP. It was good to see you kind of walking into the lobby, being treated with kit gloves. So anyway, is that the right word?
It wasn't the good fellas coming in through the kitchen scene, but it was close.
It was pretty close. It was really good. Glad to have you back, Mike. I was worried about you that you wouldn't be able to make it, but thanks for making it. And then our final host is not the final guy. He's not the worst guy when we put him on the end. He's full of energy. It's Scott Taylor. And you might know him from his own bombastic podcast. But he's also the co-founder for Blue Skies Ventures. Scott was also the co-founder for the internet company virtualrelocation.com and raised millions in venture funding. And the company sold to monster.com for just under a cool $100 million. He is currently also out and about in Utah, bringing to the stage, here is Scott Taylor. What's up, Scott?
How's it going, everybody? Good to see the gang back together again. I'm in a little rigid Utah at this.
Is it rigid? It's not Texas.
No, but I mean, this place is amazing. Utah, for anybody that hasn't been out here, is just gorgeous. And this is like one of the best kept secrets. It's called Powder Mountain. It's owned by Summit from Summit Series, this social group of super go-getter and entrepreneurs. And there's something amazing that happens when you bring all these people together. I was sharing with some of the guys before. So, my brain is always spinning, as you would imagine anyways, but I'm excited for another show talking about AI and how we can relate it to just practical things that make us better, faster, cheaper. So I'm looking forward to the show today, fellas.
And by the way, too, the topic of the show, which I think I'm pretty excited about, is talking about, as Vance alluded to, the black box of artificial intelligence. If it does all these things and it just does them correctly, or you start making revenue, do you need to know what's inside of AI? So we're going to be kind of talking about that, but we can't do it by ourselves. We have a real special guest. As I said in the post, twice as nice. We're bringing back to the show Florenta, who is from the USC Business School, Marshall Business School. I am totally ruining that up. And I'm just going to add you on, Florenta, just to correct me so I don't make any mistakes.
Right.
Welcome back to the show, Florenta.
Thanks for having me the second time. Great to be here. I look forward to today's chat.
Well, 3 times a charm, by the way. So that third time we bring you back, that's going to be the show.
She's
Let me
done
tell you
Saturday
something.
Night Live 6 times already. You know that, right? Her now,
Yes,
or like this.
That's right, exactly. So to get this thing started too, with everything that's been going on, we have had power grid issues. A lot of our prayers are with those who are in Texas who probably can't watch it. They'll have to watch this in replay. But I do want to try to keep everybody warm with our thoughts. So with this being said, I'd like to get started with this. Vance, you were actually, like we were talking about, you were working, burning the midnight oil, trying to get models together. And we had a little discussion around, is black box AI important? Do we need to know what's behind all of the algorithms and what's going to happen? Or do we just want it to work? What is your take on that, Vance?
Well, I guess ultimately we want it to work. In the end of the day, we could spend all the time we want questioning it and digging it and looking through to how it got to where it did. But, if it increased your ROAS, if you've got a better ROI in your marketing, you're getting better engagement, the revenue's coming in, then do we really care about how it actually worked? Now, of course, that's kind of silly because, yes, we want to care about it because we want to make that repeatable. We want to know why it works so that we can continue on that successful path and achieve our next set of goals and grow. So, why it works is important. But I have a slightly different take on it. It's really, you don't need to know the math necessarily, the engineering part of it, but you do need to know about the data you're putting in. And, like I said before the show, you don't just go bake a cake when you don't know how to bake a cake and think, I'll throw anything in there and, well, a cake's going to come out, because a cake may not come out. All kinds of other things will probably come out. So it all comes down to what we're feeding in there. And a lot of that has, that's the biggest thing that's going to have the impact of what comes out.
Well, I want to say, if you don't know your data, you don't know your brand.
Well, there you go. Nicely put. I don't need to be here. But I think you're spot on. I talk with marketers a lot, and I get a lot of questions about, well, why did the AI suggest to include these words or these things in my images? Like the why comes up all the time. And that is, that's all about it. It's like as marketers, we have to know that data behind our brand and why it matters to our brand, why it obviously matters to our customers. Otherwise, we can't expect to make sense of the predictions and insights an AI will give us.
Right.
They're going to cause us issues. Sometimes that's good, but sometimes that's not, right?
Right.
So, Florenta, what's bad AI? Like, I understand the math. It's like, zeros and ones and all this stuff. But if you're using AI, do you just assume that the AI works and it's perfect? Or can there be a bad programmer? Can there be a bad algorithm? What makes, like, Vance's company, better than another company if it's all math? Equations are equations. Explain that to me, because I don't know.
And I know.
No pressure, by the way, Florenta, no pressure.
Yeah, I cannot say that I'm the specialist of this, but here's are my thoughts. Is there such thing as a bad programmer, bad software developer, bad anything? I don't know. Bad sounds bad, but I think there is variation, right? It's math, but math requires creativity to some extent. How to make the best out of what it can do. It's the fact that there is math behind it does not guarantee that everybody is going to use it to its full potential and use it right.
Right. So it's like economics with a building. Somebody can build a house that looks pretty on the outside, but inside the structure falls apart. that's why there's permits. That's why there's people that come in and tell you, hey, you need this cross beam here or whatever. Electric has to be a certain way. Is there the same type of things within AI programming that there's just certain things that have to function a certain way? Otherwise, you know, you're not going to be respected, or it falls apart.
I mean, to your analogy with the house, there are some guiding principles that we learn as we move along with innovation. But again, I have a background in computer science and math, but I haven't been coding for quite a while, to be honest. So I'm more from the econ perspective. Just the caveat in here, so no programmer gets.
Yeah, I'll hand the other stuff off the
in what I say, right? But my analogy, the way I understand it, yes, there are some guiding principles, but even with houses, there is innovation, right? Not all houses look the same. They have the basic elements in there, and some houses look quite basic, and then you have architects that are coming in with new interesting principles that move our understanding forward, and they create new interesting things, right? Why can it be the same? That's my understanding with AI and programming in general, right? There is innovation to be done. There are some guiding principles, yes, of course. In other words, you can probably understand what's really, really bad, but there's a lot of room for innovation and creativity in the good stuff.
Yeah. You know, that goes back to our discussion the first time you were our guest, and we talked about that book, Prediction Machines. Yes. And it came down to that discussion that, you know, the AI produces these predictions, and it is they're not necessarily good or bad. They're just predictions. We're using our judgment. We have to apply judgment. That's the human role in this. So, you know, the house example, if the architect puts a great big window right in front of the toilet into the kitchen, well, you know, it might have looked really cool in a plan. The window might be beautiful, but it's a pretty bad decision, you know, to do that. And we would hope that not be the case. And in our future judgment, we would say that's, you know, probably needs a curtain or shouldn't be there. But that is a, you know, that's a uniquely human role in many ways. That maybe that's not the best example, but, you know, that judgment part of the human has to be part of this. It's not just let it run.
Arming the data, right?
Yeah, yep. Like knowing what data goes in. I mean, that's what in our tool, we use first-party data. The user chooses which data to feed the model. It might be their location data based on Boston that they want to model on, the consumers in Boston, or it might be their product line X from the Southwest. But we give the user the ability to choose the data to build their model so that they know, or we hope they know, what they're putting in is sensible, so what they get out seems more sensible.
And one thing I wanted to, I'm sorry, Florenta, go ahead.
Right. You know, and as like, you know, coming from the agency world, we're not taking decisions away from creatives or executives. What we're doing is arming them with better information so that decisions and paths they take can go further.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we often get questions like, well, I want an answer or a prediction in this area. You know, it's like, we want to do this new campaign and, you know, can the AI predict this? And I have to back up from that right away. And Florenta, I think you probably could, you know, expose on this too. Is like, well, we have to back up and say, do you even have the data that can help you get a prediction or an insight on that? Because if you don't, what are we working with? The math can't do it on its own.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out. You know, AI is speculated to be this special type of technology called the general purpose technology. General purpose technologies are enabling technologies. That means in by itself, it's probably not super amazing, doing a lot. It's doing prediction. This is trivializing a bit, but the super benefits of a general purpose technology, of this enabling technology, are revealed when combined with insights from somewhere else. So you do need the skills in marketing. You do need the skills in different other domains to understand your business, to understand your customers, to understand your data in order to make the most out of that technology.
Yeah, it's like putting on the, you know, the lenses that help you understand it in that context, unpack it in that context. Yeah.
Well, I think there's actually poor branding, and the word artificial might not be the best word. There's nothing more pure than data and insight. And when you can combine them, that's anything but artificial.
I agree with you, Mike.
That's actually really good. I like that.
Yeah, how'd that happen? There's got to be a new word, because you're right. Artificial intelligence, like, where do you come up with that? That's the antithesis of what it is.
Sure.
You know, intelligent automation is a great way to put it too. You know, it's more of a layman's terms, but I'm trying to take something and automate it and in a more intelligent way.
Let's have a contest. Florenta, what do you think? What would you call it?
I don't know.
On the spot, right?
You're the professor, so we're like leaning on you. What?
To be honest, what would I call it? And I don't know if I really have an issue with the word intelligence.
No.
artificial.
Like sweetener?
I know. I mean, I understand. It's like, yeah, artificial in the sense that it's not biological human being, and it's man-made in that sense. I think there are a number of ways that people call it. None of that comes to mind.
Yeah.
But if it's mathematical, it's anything but artificial. Humans are artificial because you can't prove what we're thinking.
True.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that comes right down to the whole unsupervised and supervised training on data models that we were talking about earlier. You know, if it's a supervised training, we're telling it, we're directing it, we're guiding it. It's like the training wheels are there, sort of thing.
Right.
When it's unsupervised in a neural net situation for deep learning, we're letting it learn. And I mean, we have experience in this. We have a training template that we start with, but it's a neural net. It does learn its own way. You know, we try and bias it one way to get what we think should be the answer or the direction it should go in. And it very quickly will either, you know, prove our bias wrong or in some cases maybe right, but probably wrong most of the time.
And by the way,
I have more of an issue with the word intelligence than with artificial.
why is that? Why do you what would you call
What's
it as
intelligence? I don't know. What's intelligence?
True.
Like there's a lot written about this, right? But that machine, let's assume it behaves, it gives the same answer that a human being would.
Right.
Is it intelligent?
Well, I have.
How about guided decisions?
Yeah, that sounds
Like
really.
we like to say, guided creativity.
Yeah.
And
Right.
actually, it's a very freeing thing. And I mean, you could make that sound at the beginning. Our insights are doing guided creativity. Does that narrow my field of being able to be a creative, or does it actually free me to go wild and be creative in the ways that, you know, the insights explore, or insights that we would have never thought of in that advertising campaign?
Have you guys seen the interview with Elon Musk and the guy that started Alibaba?
Yes.
And how the guy from Alibaba is fighting Elon Musk, is like talking about data, and the guy's like, that doesn't mean anything. You know, people are the most important part. You can't compete with machine and data. Elon Musk's head was going to fall off. It was really funny. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend watching it.
But I have to say, one of the things that kind of made me start thinking about artificial intelligence in a good and a bad light is, have you ever heard the story of the two Tays? I wrote a whole article about it, Microsoft's two Tays. Microsoft had a chatbot that came out probably in 2015. It was called Tay. There was an English version, and then they also created a Microsoft Tay for the Chinese audience as well. And it was supposed to be a teenage girl or boy that basically was supposed to be kind of innocent and helpful, and it was supposed to learn on its own and do what it had to do. The English American, and it's funny how I always put American with English, but the English version within 24 hours was racist, was talking about Nazis. It went and it had to go offline. The Chinese one actually still exists in certain ways and kind of was able to kind of transform to do music. It was a news broadcaster for a while. It wrote a book of poetry. And that really goes back to the data. And one of the things I normally tell people is what you feed it, again, what Florenta was saying, garbage in, garbage out. But one of the things that made me worry a little bit is when you look at the Chinese version, because of the firewall, it was restricting what could get to it to be fed. So it didn't take on those bad connotations, which could be good and bad. But that's where we are. You feed it, it becomes the monster that you make it. And probably I think, right? Remember when Alexa and Siri first came out? Did you see those videos where Alexa and Siri are right beside each other and they keep going back and forth with each other, and it gets out of control a bit? And they've turned that off, by the way. I've tried it the other day and it doesn't work anymore. So it's funny how the data can feed itself and just become an avalanche. You're there in Powder Mountain there, Scott, for avalanches. It can become a data avalanche of bad expectations or bad experiences coming out of AI.
Well, Vance, are we doing the right thing right now? Or do you think they're the right bumpers in place as it relates to, like, this is about CMOs and AI, right? Are the CMOs putting the right bumpers? Do they understand what that even means?
I think they have to start from what they're trying to achieve and then work back from there and see whether they've got the data to feed the AI. Because, and we talk, some bad examples of AI when we look at things like zip codes and we look at, and we find out the AI appears to have a bias towards a certain color or a certain income or whatever. But when you're feeding things like zip codes in, and you do know the incomes for those areas, you know something about the ethnic makeup of a neighborhood, then you're probably going to get some decision or some predictions or some insights out of your AI that might trouble you. But it wasn't the AI that necessarily brought them up, like Gary's example there. It was the fact that the data we fed it already had those problems in it. It was only exposing them in that way. And, you know, that's a pretty extreme and it can be pretty horrible. But in advertising, we have a lot of the same things. If we're feeding it in data, if we think we've got this data, we think we know everything about our customer, and we're feeding in what we think it should have, maybe we're not feeding it the right stuff. You know, are we picking up what the customer actually cares about, what the customer's saying, what the customer wants, what generates demand? We go into it and we assume we're selling this top and everyone's going to love it because the color and the design is good and the background looks fantastic. But, you know, then we find out that the customer was actually asking for something else and wanted something else. Well, was that a fail by the AI? Well, no, actually, it's a fail by the human because we weren't open at the beginning to hearing what the AI brought back from the data, and we weren't feeding it the data that could help us, you know, achieve that goal.
Well, data just amplifies the truth that's around us, and what it tells us sometimes is we're not looking far enough beyond, you know, what's right here.
Yep.
And we
don't want to get over our own assumptions sometimes.
Change.
Florenta, how come the AI doesn't know that in advance and fix it and adopt it?
How can it know? I mean, again, going back to this.
Thermos. How does the thermos know if it's supposed to be hot or cold? There's very complicated questions, right?
Oh God, it's back to
different type of engineer, I think.
The AI is not intelligent. That's why, you know, when you ask me the alternative definition of artificial intelligence, my problem is with intelligence. It's just a machinery. You give it data, it notices patterns in the data. It cannot tell you if the data is good or bad, if it represents what you're looking for or not, right? It cannot give you any instructions based on that. It just sees patterns in the data. And there is one other aspect of it. It's, again, prediction machine. Prediction means it's not going to figure out causal relationships. And I think there's a danger, to be honest, that we are so focused on AI and prediction, because to some extent it prevents us from understanding causal connections. Predictors are not necessarily the telling for the causal connections between things. And historically, you know, knowledge advancement happened because we understand causal connections. We might have great predictors of stuff and we just go based on the prediction, but we don't understand what's the root cause of something.
Yeah.
And we just keep rolling in the same way. We don't know what we don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. You repeat the same things. You observe better patterns in the data, sharper patterns in the data, but you don't understand what's causing what. Hence, you don't know what you're missing.
Yeah.
So Vance, you really have to stay, there has to be a human element that stays on top of this, you know, that continues to tweak and tweak and tweak. It's not set it and forget it. It's, you know, it's not going to learn on its own, to Florenta's point. The human has to keep coming in. Otherwise, you could have like a runaway quant trade that just causes bedlam because the AI is saying this, even though they don't know what human thing happened, you know, in
Or even worse, we look at the results that come out and we just go, you know, it doesn't mean anything, or it's worthless, or it's not smart enough, you know, it's not intelligent, and we put it away. But I'll give you a real example, and you know, you can't talk about the brand or anything like that. But we had one case where the insights were coming up with the word milk and glass. And it was very confusing because the brand was not in the milk industry and they didn't sell glasses either. You know, they sold a totally different product. But this AI kept bringing up in their imagery, they needed more milk and glasses. And, you know, of course, the marketer was like, this is stupid. It doesn't work. These insights are wrong. But when we looked at it, we did a little investigation and we unpacked it more. And we saw, you know what, we looked on their website, which, of course, we look at with our AI. And we could see that, you know what, it was seeing a candle. And candles are white and it was in a glass. And therefore, you know, the AI mistook that for a glass of milk. In fact, that was one of the, you know, very successful promotion, this candle in this beautiful glass holder. But that's the human, to me, that was, you know, that's that causal thing. That's the relation a human has to the AI. They have to be looking at this and they have to be, take the blinders off and think a little broadly, unpack that insight and think, what's the AI seeing here? It's picked up something that matters. There's a reason it matters. Let's figure out why it matters, because that's probably where the gold is. That's probably what's going to really set my campaign apart or drag in that new audience or, you know, whatever it is.
You know, Vance, you're working in this all the time, doing campaigns for everyone. How did you and your team figure out when to question the insights and the data, and when to go with it?
Well, it's, we look to verify the insights very quickly by using
Coin
lookalike.
score, Mike. He flips the coin at that point.
That costs
I
more.
wish it was that easy. No. So we look at, we have a number of tools. So one, we do like to verify it. If it's saying bring in leaves and bring in wood, all right, let's have a look at what that means, because it might not have anything to do with a tree. It might mean hiking in the park. So we might swap a few images and just see if the results are the same or the insight's the same and where that's going. But it really is, we provide a couple tools. One, we show them what the confidence is on their data, on the predictions coming out on that data. So like a political poll, it's 85% confidence ratio, plus or minus 5%. All right, we've established there's probably the AI trained well. We also have a variance indicator that says like how much variety is in their data, because if it's got too much variety, we know that the answers might not be very good. Imagine Macy's and, say they put menswear data, women's wear data, homeware, and kitchen data together. Well, you're going to get pretty poor answers on any one of those verticals. So we look at that variance a lot too, to say like, you might need to segment that data to get smart answers. So we have a few tools like that we use to try and make sure as much as possible, we're always giving, the best insights, but they still need unpacking, and they still need a marketer, a human, to sit there and go, what does it mean for my brand?
What's that, Mike?
They need a person.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We humans matter yet.
Yeah. Still, maybe at some point humans won't matter, but at this point, and
what?
Maybe there are so many examples.
You heard it here first.
Go ahead,
Loretta. That word intelligence. There's so many silly examples. I cannot remember the name of the site, but anyhow, a simple Googling of things. There are sites that show strange correlations between variables in real life, like for example, number of pirates and climate change and stuff like that. So prediction, in a way, it's related to that without going into any details, right? So if we see that the number of pirates is going down according to this data, we can predict that climate change is going to become worse. Like, that makes no sense, right? You need that human being in there to sort of have a sense of how to interpret those results. This is how I don't see how this AI is intelligent, because it's going to give you number of pirates is predictive of increased climate change, but
yeah. Mm-hmm. I think the takeaway for a CMO in this, I think this is probably a really important takeaway for a CMO when they're thinking of their resource plan and their budgets. AI in a lot of areas have actually reduced the number of jobs at the automatable level, but it's created equal or more jobs at the higher value roles in analysis, interpretation, and things like that, where we're using our brain power to apply these things. So I think if I was CMO today, I would be really thinking about my resource mix of where we're going to automate or intelligently automate or whatever we want to call it, repeatable tasks or data analysis. And then I'm going to have to resource in some of these powerful thinkers who know how to apply this insight and understand KPIs and what results we're achieving, what results we want to achieve, and what data we want to use to get those results. I mean, that's high value work, and that's really interesting work.
So Vance, real quick, you just made me think of something, Mike. Sorry. So this team in a marketing agency, right? All of a sudden it kind of flashed in front of me that you'd want a data scientist, and then you'd want, if the brand you're working with is, women's apparel, that person doesn't need to be a digital media buyer or something. Really what you need is a person who understands women's athleisure wear, and then the data scientist. So this could change the whole kind of recruiting and employment for CMOs or for agencies in general. That team looks a little bit different now.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, to be a little bit shameless about it, there's a lot of companies that just can't afford that data scientist. A lot of mid-tier can't afford the salaries or find them, especially the smaller business areas. So they can use an AI like ours to actually do some of that base data work, and then have that human analyst on their team or that expert on their team that can then learn, use that interpretation or use their interpretation of that data and those insights. But it's an opportunity to rework their resourcing so they can get better results for their brands.
If you're going through the budgeting, I look at whenever I go through the process, it's learning without media spend.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on.
And that's a great opportunity. It's quick, it's efficient, and it's forward looking. Too many CMOs focus on the backward looking stuff, and we need to focus on forward looking.
But then they don't get to burn all that cash for 90 days, Mike.
I talked to a CMO. I talked to CMO just the other day, and I was saying, give me a typical campaign budget. He's like $1 million. I was like, all right, how much, what percentage are you setting aside for live experimentation, discovery, learning time? He goes, it's at least 10%. I said, okay, that seems like a lot of money, your campaign budget. What is it going to take to change that and make that really powerful to you? Like, how much do we have to move? And it was like, 100 basis points. That's a lot more money to put into the ad spend. If you can keep pegging that back month after month, that discovery time, reducing it because you're learning, you have better data, you understand what's generating demand, you can start vastly reducing that while still getting even better results on that spend.
Cool.
So one of the things that I wanted to kind of bring up here is that I think sometimes that when we bring up those terms, data, AI, those type of things, aren't we immediately pushing away anybody that wants to use this technology that normally wouldn't? How do we start creating a vocabulary to bring them in? Is it guided, creative, or is it creative hand-holding? How do you create that vocabulary? Because we got to really appeal to the humans, not so much the robots. They don't really care. How do you feel about that, Florenta and Vance?
Well, I could sit there and talk about genetic training and things like that, but that doesn't really mean anything. And it shouldn't, it does to an engineer, but it shouldn't to our customer and to our user. That they shouldn't have to worry about talking at that. And they shouldn't, that's not their expertise either. There's other people paid to worry about that sort of stuff. It does come back down to marketers these days. If you're in school or you're in training or, you're mid-career or end of career, you do need to go out there and learn about how to talk about things like concepts, audience models or models, using that language, because those are your new terms about how you're understanding what you're doing in your work.
Well, take it even another level. You can't understand data if you don't understand people.
Yeah. So Florenta, what are the students? There's a part of this that makes me think that this new language makes them feel special, and if they dumb it down for average people, it's not as special. So what are they kind of attracted to? Do they like this special language, or does it matter?
I don't think it matters as much, to be honest. I do see people that are sort of intimidated by this specialized language, but others are not. Maybe, who knows, in different other areas, maybe people are intimidated by I don't see it. Let me put it this way. I don't see it. I mean, there were ways before of computation, right? There are big words of big data and whatever not in different other waves of technology. People adapted. Yes, there is this hype of I'm using big words in my business and therefore I'm special, but I'm not changing anything. And there might be some fear, oh my God, AI, what is that? But it only takes a bit of a education learning, which I think it can be achieved. There's so many resources out there that can take the hype out of the terms and simply explain what they are, an extension of data analytics, prediction, and so on. What I find, to your point, people are afraid of losing their job, more so than the term.
Importantly.
They feel. They don't understand what AI is and what the concept is, and they're afraid of losing their job. I don't think they're afraid of adopting new terms once they understand what the terms are. And once they understand that the technology can also help them, not displace them from their jobs.
Good point.
Gary, I know you're trying to end our session today, Gary, but Florenta, I think you're spot on there. I wrote an article in Forbes a couple years ago, and it was basically, do you know the difference between data analytics and machine learning, AI machine learning or AI analytics? And that one went completely viral, 100,000 views or something like that in no time. And it just said that there's a great thirst out there amongst marketers and others to actually know, well, how does data analytics differ from predictive analytics, differ from AI analytics? Because people don't know. And if it's not hard to go find those definitions online, we can do that. That doesn't take a special skill. And those words aren't that big, right? But we need to arm ourselves better to be in that discussion so we make better decisions ourselves.
But remember, too, the last time we had her on the show, we actually asked her the first question. We said, define artificial intelligence. So do we really know what a term means? Because it's always evolving. So that's something to consider as we go through this and how it works with our field. By the way, too, the only reason I'm trying to shut this down on time is I worry about Mike's hand. I'm worried he's got a cramp because it's like Blair Witch Project over on Mike's side. So I don't want you to have a cramp there, Mike.
Extension of the hand.
Yeah. Do you need a hand, Mike? I feel sorry for you because you're going to you won't be able to pick up your fork or knife after this.
The crane guys.
That's right.
Well, it's been fun. It's been good talking to everybody again for sure.
Yeah, and this isn't over, so we're going to be jumping over to Clubhouse right after this. So we are basically going to be opening it up to any audience questions, that type of thing. It'll be jumping on Clubhouse, starting at 2 p.m. PST time, which is going to be basically, I got to always do my time check at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll be on there for about 30 minutes or so. If you have any questions, or if you just want to kind of come on and bring your own personal experiences around AI and marketing. So if you don't know where, if you can't find us, just go to aistrategy.club and just click on the Clubhouse link. That link will take you straight to our room. And Florenta, I cannot thank you enough for being our guest. We love having you come back.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm having so much fun.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. Although I'm not as hyped as, I feel like my energy is down from a long day.
I'm going to get you a monster.
I'm super excited.
I'm going to get you a monster truck poster right behind you on that wall right there.
Yeah. I'm you're absolutely right.
Scott, we're going to test that creative out first on our audience to see if that's what Florenta should have behind.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There we go.
And I want to try out a lava lamp. I'm going against this monster truck with a lava lamp. So let's see which one. Mike, what do you say?
I think we test the wall before we test the creative.
Whoa. He just kicked us in the butt. Awesome. Well, anyway, so that's the end of AI strategy for CMOs. I'd like to thank everybody for being here. Vance, Reavie, CEO of Junction AI, Scott Taylor of Blue Skies Ventures, Mike Tankel for To Be Continued, because it is to be continued, and of course our special guest, Florenta. Thank you so much for all of us, and we'll be here every Thursday from 4 p.m. Eastern Time to 1 p.m. Pacific, and we'll be joining everybody on the Clubhouse app right afterwards. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What if I told you the competition increased their ad engagement by 350%? Or they boosted dollar value per online sale by 8 times? You'd want to know how, right? Your future and your ability to compete in the marketplace is at risk. It's simple. Your competitor has found a new formula. They're using an AI audience model to predict winning creative and successful digital advertising to dramatically boost their ad performance. And now you can too. With Junction AI, there's no need for expensive engineering and data science. Our AI deep learning solution creates an audience model from your data to deliver relevant and targeted predictions and insights to make your ad creative dramatically more effective. It's a first-of-its-kind solution, and best of all, it's designed especially for marketers. Let me show you how it works. Connect your audience data in a click. Choose your goal. Next, start a new ad or work from an imported ad. Change some copy or an image. Score it. We just ran up to 75 million tests on your audience data. Now is the fun part. Check the improvement suggestions on each field. Make changes and score again to see if you're heading in the right direction. Validate your message is on target with the results breakdown. If the concepts here aren't what you think you are promoting, then you're probably wasting a lot of time and money. Now, it's time to deploy live. In only seconds, you've harnessed your data to save time and dramatically boost your results. It's like having your own personal AI data scientist at your fingertips 24/7. Digital is a science. We are the formula.